The drama opens with a quiet residential street bathed in soft daylight. A blue car slowly pulls up and comes to a stop in front of a modest bungalow. The engine turns off and after a brief pause the passenger door opens. A tall young man steps out. This is Jen, the male lead. He stands still for a moment, studying the house in silence as if measuring the weight of memories hidden behind its walls. Behind him, another man exits the car while lifting a suitcase from the trunk. This man is his uncle. With a slightly disapproving tone, the uncle comments that staying in a hotel would have been more comfortable. Jin only smiles faintly and replies that the bungalow is closer to where he needs to be, and since he plans to stay in Korea for about 10 days, it makes more sense to remain here. Without adding anything further, he walks toward the entrance with calm, confident steps. Inside, Jen takes his time observing every corner of the house. His uncle suggests that while he is in the country, he should reconnect with old friends and socialize a little. Jen immediately dismisses the idea. He claims he does not have friends and has no interest in meeting anyone. When asked about dinner plans, he casually mentions that he has already arranged something for himself. Elsewhere in the city, the female lead walks down the street with her friend. She looks slightly nervous yet determined. Her friend asks if she is ready. With a small smile, she confirms that she has prepared carefully, makeup done, outfit chosen, everything in place. Her name is Lena. Soon after, Jen is seen sitting alone in a cafe. He wears dark sunglasses and leans back in his chair, appearing relaxed, though his distant gaze suggests otherwise. Lena enters the cafe and notices him sitting by himself. Assuming he must be her blind date, she approaches confidently and sits across from him. Cheerfully, she introduces herself as Lena and explains that she is his best friend. Jen freezes. Slowly, he removes his sunglasses. Recognition dawns in his eyes. Memories from high school flood his mind. Lena standing boldly in front of classmates, holding a heart-shaped letter and smiling that exact same smile. He hesitates before asking if she is truly Lena. Before their conversation can continue, another young woman named Mew approaches. Lena quickly realizes she has mistaken Jen for someone else. Embarrassed, she apologizes and hurries toward the correct table at the back of the cafe where her actual blind date waits. Mew attempts to chat with Jen, reminding him that they once met at Joseph's wedding and asking if he remembers her. However, Jen's attention remains fixed on Lena. He observes her carefully, thinking to himself that she seems unchanged despite the passing years. Eventually, Lena and her date leave the cafe together. Jen follows them outside, but they fail to notice him. He watches as Lena gets into a car, wondering quietly whether she genuinely does not remember him or is simply pretending. Lena is driven to a restaurant. She expresses a desire to eat something light, but her date insists on ordering pasta, mentioning that Yi specifically told him not to listen to Lena's preferences. Lena chooses silence over argument. Later that evening, Mew invites Jen to join her at a bar, but he politely declines. She offers to drive him home, yet he invents an excuse about not being familiar with the roads. Meanwhile, Lena also refuses when her date offers to drop her off, choosing to go home alone instead. As Jen drives, he receives a call from Joseph. Joseph teases him for rejecting Mew, describing her as charming and attractive. Jen responds indifferently, explaining that he is only in Korea for work and intends to return as soon as possible. Joseph laughs and calls him dull before ending the call. At a red light, Jen notices Lena sitting at a bus stop. She gathers her long hair into a neat bun, exactly the way she used to in school. Another wave of memories crashes over him. The day she handed him that letter and asked if he would write back. He lowers his window and calls out to her, but a bus passes between them, blocking his view. She seems to notice him briefly, yet the traffic light changes and he is forced to drive forward. When he turns back toward the bus stop, she has disappeared. Moments later, he spots her at a nearby street food stall. She stands quietly, sipping fish cake broth. Jen approaches and orders fish cake as well. She pretends not to notice him. After a pause, he asks if she remembers him. She smiles casually and admits that she does. He questions why she did not acknowledge him earlier. She shrugs, implying that it did not seem important. He reminds her that it has been 10 years since they last saw each other. She responds with mild sarcasm, asking whether he came to Korea to meet old friends after living in the United States. He clarifies that he came for work and unexpectedly met her first. She takes his phone number, claiming she will share it with their classmates. While sipping broth, he dares to ask if she ever missed him. Startled, she accidentally spits broth onto his coat. Her bus arrives at that exact moment. She pays the vendor and instructs him to give the remaining change to Jen for dry cleaning before hurrying away. Back at the bungalow, Jen mutters to himself that he is not pleased to have met her either. Still, he checks his phone again, reflecting on how strange it is that some memories linger even after a decade. The story shifts to their high school days. Jen steps off a bus with his foot in a cast. The driver informs him that a girl from his school is still asleep in the back seat and asks him to wake her. Reluctantly, he does so. The girl turns out to be Lena. At the school gate, teachers are punishing students who arrived late. Thinking quickly, Lena grabs Jen's hand and places it over her shoulder, pretending she is helping him walk because of his injury. When questioned, she claims she was assisting a friend. Jen firmly denies knowing her and hides his name badge, challenging her to state his name. She cannot answer and glares at him in frustration. Inside the classroom, Jen later discovers a novel hidden in his bag. He realizes Lena secretly placed it there to protect it from being confiscated by teachers. In the present timeline, Lena excitedly calls her friend Yi and tells her that she ran into Jen again. Yi reacts with shy excitement. She confesses that he was her first love back in school. Lena recalls how Yi once struggled to write a confession letter for Jen and ultimately begged Lena to deliver it on her behalf. Though reluctant, Lena agreed and publicly handed the letter to him in the corridor. Now Yi asks about the blind date Lena arranged for her. Lena dismisses the man coldly, describing him as uninteresting and rigid. She quickly changes the topic and asks whether Yi wants Jen's number. After a pause, Yi says nothing. Lena sends it anyway. The next day, Jen attends a corporate meeting at his uncle's company. His uncle, who serves as CEO of the Korean branch, formally introduces him to the employees. When invited to speak, Jen surprises everyone by pointing out flaws in the business proposal instead of introducing himself. He highlights calculation errors and strategic weaknesses with calm precision before leaving the room and resting in his office. His uncle reminds him that he came to Korea for serious work. Jen replies that his suggestions will benefit everyone. The uncle makes a sarcastic remark comparing him to his mother, who once started her own company. Jen quietly responds that he still has a long way to go before reaching her level. Soon after, he receives a call from an unknown number. It is Yi. She asks if he recognizes her voice. He confirms that he does. She welcomes him back warmly and tells him that another former classmate, Sangpil, also wants to reconnect. They have organized a small gathering to celebrate his return. And with that, the story continues, weaving together the present and the past, where old feelings, misunderstandings, and unfinished confessions begin resurfacing once more. After receiving Yi's call, Jen hesitates for only a brief moment before agreeing to attend the gathering. Hearing Lena's name mentioned again unsettles him more than he wants to admit, yet curiosity quietly wins over caution. That evening, Yi arrives at Sangpil's small restaurant first. The place is warm and welcoming, filled with the comforting smell of freshly prepared dishes. Not long after Jen walks in, Sangpil immediately rushes toward him, visibly emotional. It has been years since they last met. He asks countless questions at once: how Jen has been, how life in the United States treated him, whether he plans to stay long. Yi stands nearby, smiling nervously. She extends her hand politely for a handshake. Jen glances at Sangpil instead and asks who she is. Sangpil laughs and explains that this is Yi, though she looks completely different now. Her style has matured and she no longer resembles the shy schoolgirl he once knew. They sit together as Sangpil brings out dish after dish, proud of his cooking. He shares that he opened the restaurant a couple of years ago and has been working hard to make it successful. He mentions that she became a teacher, speaking modestly about her profession. As the night continues, he drinks more than she intended. She keeps checking the time, wondering aloud why Lena has not arrived yet. She tries to call her but grows increasingly drowsy from the alcohol. Eventually, she falls asleep with her head resting on the table. At the same time, Lena receives a message from her boss requesting her presence at a company party. She is asked to deliver a congratulatory gift to the director. Though reluctant, she attends the event, offers polite congratulations, and hands over the present. She attempts to leave quietly, but colleagues insist she stay longer and pull her back into the celebration. While there, she notices Juno surrounded by people praising the success of his newly released book. The sight visibly unsettles her. She clearly wants to escape the atmosphere but remains trapped in polite conversation for a while. Back at Sangpil's restaurant, Yi is completely asleep. Eventually, Lena arrives, noticeably intoxicated. The moment she spots Jen sitting there, she stares at him and blurts out with a half-drunken laugh, asking why she keeps running into him everywhere lately. Sangpil suggests that since Lena lives nearby, Jen should take her home while he looks after Yi. Jen agrees without protest. Outside, Lena walks unsteadily while Jen follows closely behind to make sure she does not stumble. As they walk, Lena begins rambling about their very first meeting in high school. Her recollections are exaggerated and dramatic, causing Jen to let out a quiet laugh. She notices his smile and teases him, insisting that he cannot possibly be the same Jen she knew because he never used to smile like that. He looks at her carefully and asks if that is truly how she remembers him. Still walking, she suddenly reminds him of the time she secretly slipped a book into his bag to hide it from teachers. She recounts a line from that book about first love being something precious that happens only once, comparing it to frozen food that must be preserved carefully or it will spoil. Through that metaphor, she subtly warns him not to revisit his first love casually. When they reach her home, Lena heads toward the entrance of her building. Jen freezes for a moment, recognizing the place instantly from years ago. Quietly, he follows her upstairs. As she enters the security code, she turns around suspiciously and asks whether he is following her. Caught off guard, he awkwardly apologizes. Her words trigger an old memory in his mind, Lena asleep in the school library with her hand resting lightly against his. That image once made his heart race. The next morning, Lena wakes up in a messy room, groaning about having drunk far too much. Bits of the previous night return to her mind, how she attended Jen's welcome gathering and caused unnecessary chaos before he brought her home. Meanwhile, Jen prepares hangover soup for his uncle. His uncle eats it with satisfaction and casually asks how things are going with his so-called crush. Jen avoids answering. At Lena's apartment, he arrives and questions why Lena came home so late. Lena explains that her boss forced her to stay at the party longer than expected. He comments that Jen has grown even more handsome and mature. Lena reminds her that she once advised her to move on, but he stubbornly insists that she still has feelings and has continued writing letters to him over the years. Elsewhere, Jen asks his uncle for a favor, suggesting that the neighbor upstairs bring him food sometime. His uncle reminds him that he will be leaving Korea soon and wonders aloud why he is not spending more time with his supposed first love. Jen remains silent, unable to explain himself. He confesses that she has been improving her English with the hope of someday going to the United States to be near Jen. Later, Lena receives a call from Uncle W asking whether she can take his niece out for a short trip. She confirms that it is the same child whose photo he had previously sent and agrees to help. The following morning, Jen wakes up early and prepares to leave when the doorbell rings. He opens the door to find Lena standing there. She looks stunned to see him. She asks what he is doing there. He calmly responds by asking whether his presence is a problem. She explains that she expected to pick up a young girl from the store but instead found him. She shows him a photo of the child. Jen studies it briefly before revealing that it is actually a picture of himself as a child. Realization dawns on Lena. She jokes that since he has grown up, he can travel on his own now. As she attempts to leave, he reminds her of a promise she once broke. That statement makes her pause. After a moment, she agrees to proceed with the plan. She attempts to call Yi to explain who she will be spending the day with, but Yi's phone is busy. Meanwhile, Yi feels disappointed because Jen is unavailable for her weekend plans. Just as she considers calling Lena, her father arrives and asks her to accompany him somewhere. In the car, Lena feels awkward sitting beside Jen. Sensing her discomfort, he tells her to relax and suggests she treat him like a child for the day. They arrive at an amusement park and begin trying various rides. Laughter replaces tension as they shout and enjoy themselves like teenagers again. Lena attempts to call Yi again, but there is no answer. Elsewhere, Yi goes hiking with her father. While walking along a rocky path, she twists her ankle and nearly falls, but a young man catches her in time. She blushes shyly. Back at the park, Lena and Jen decide to participate in a spicy ramen challenge. Jen proposes that the winner gets one wish granted by the loser. Lena accepts confidently. The first bites are overwhelmingly spicy. Jen struggles, eyes watering, but he refuses to give up. He teases Lena about her inability to handle spicy food in the past. She insists that her previous weakness was due to being drunk. Eventually, she claims victory and reminds him that he owes her a wish. He keeps his promise by taking her to a cultural festival area where visitors can wear traditional clothing. They both change outfits. Lena instructs him to take photos of her. He takes countless pictures focusing mostly on her face. She complains that he failed to capture her full outfit. As she fixes her messy bun, he watches quietly, unable to look away. She grabs the camera and demonstrates how to take proper photos, nearly losing her balance in the process. He laughs and she quickly captures his smiling face. Suddenly, rain begins pouring. They run back to the car. Inside, Lena randomly presses buttons, accidentally lowering a window and allowing rain to soak her. As Jen leans over to close it, they find themselves unexpectedly close. The moment lingers before he hands her a tissue. When they arrive at her building, heavy rain prevents her from leaving immediately. Water drips onto her shoulder. Jen instinctively steps closer to shield her. They stand there awkwardly under the downpour until she spots an umbrella nearby and announces she will head upstairs. Before she leaves, he jokingly suggests they eat fried chicken together soon. She smiles in response. Later that night, Jen lies on the couch reviewing the photos she sent him. One picture shows him smiling genuinely. He cannot help but smile again. Another memory surfaces from long ago. In the school library, Lena once confronted him about not replying to a letter she delivered. He told her calmly that silence itself was an answer. Though she left angrily, he secretly felt happy whenever she approached him. He remembers another afternoon in the library when she fell asleep while writing a book recommendation. Her head began to tip forward. Without thinking, he gently placed his hand beneath it to prevent her from hitting the desk. Realizing what he was doing, he slowly withdrew his hand and let her continue sleeping peacefully. And as he reflects on those small, forgotten moments, he begins to understand that perhaps some feelings were never entirely frozen after all. Meanwhile, Jen came across the letter Lena had written and immediately noticed that it was poorly structured and lacked clarity. The sentences were unfinished, the ideas scattered, and it did not properly express what she was trying to say. Instead of criticizing her, he quietly decided to rewrite the entire recommendation himself. He carefully composed a thoughtful and detailed letter that truly highlighted the strengths of the novel she wanted to promote. He did it without telling her, motivated purely by his feelings for her and his desire to help her succeed. The following day at work, Lena's supervisor called her into the office and informed her that the company's anniversary celebration plans had been finalized. During the discussion, the boss revealed that one of the novels published under their label would be adapted into a dramatized project for the event. This news created excitement in the office, as such an opportunity was considered prestigious. In the present time, while everyone was busy working, Juno suddenly announced that Lena would be assisting him with his project. Surprised and slightly irritated, Lena questioned why she should be the one to help him. Later, they met at a cafe to discuss the matter. Lena tried to stop him from assuming things, but Juno reminded her that she had once promised to collaborate on his novel. She pointed out that she had said that before they ended their relationship. Calmly, he replied that, in his opinion, they had never officially broken up, leaving her speechless. Elsewhere, Jen was visiting his uncle's office. While talking, they happened to notice Lena and Juno standing outside the cafe. Jen's uncle reacted with visible anger, questioning why Juno was with Lena. Curious, Jen asked for clarification and learned that Juno was Lena's former boyfriend who had left the country years ago. Outside, Juno grabbed Lena's hand and insisted that she still had feelings for him. She quickly pulled away, firmly stating that she only wanted to discuss professional matters. When Juno refused to release her, Jen intervened. He stepped forward, took Lena's hand confidently, and casually claimed she had left something in his car, using it as an excuse to guide her away from the uncomfortable situation. They stopped behind a wall, still holding hands more tightly than necessary. After a brief moment, Juno left with a faint smile as though he had understood something unspoken. When Lena and Jen emerged, their hands were still intertwined. Lena realized this and teasingly mentioned that their offices were located in the same area. As she prepared to walk away, Jen asked her quietly whether she intended to forget everything again. She laughed lightly, freed her hand, and returned to work. Back at the office, Lena's boss instructed her to concentrate fully on her tasks and handed her Juno's manuscript file. The company intended to transform it into an animated film for the upcoming anniversary. Lena hesitated, ready to decline, but her boss reminded her that she had been waiting for such an opportunity for a long time. The reminder made her pause and reconsider. Later, Jen confronted his uncle, asking directly about Juno. While offering him coffee, his uncle explained that Juno had once dated Lena before leaving to pursue his ambitions abroad. Hearing this, Jen felt a wave of shock. Suddenly, memories from high school resurfaced. He remembered how Lena had once written a recommendation letter to support Juno's writing. At that time, Jen had secretly rewritten the entire recommendation in great detail to ensure it would be accepted. He had done all of it for Lena's sake. Realizing how deeply involved he had been in her life without her knowing, he stood in stunned silence. His uncle, equally surprised, asked whether he had truly done all that just because of Lena. Jen admitted there was even more he had done that no one knew about. The story then shifted back to their school days. Jen had been preparing to travel to Seoul for a university interview. As he exited the school grounds, a bag suddenly fell in front of him and Lena appeared from behind some bushes. She awkwardly claimed she was skipping class because she felt unwell and was heading home. At the bus terminal, she purchased a ticket and boarded a bus. Later, Jen boarded the same bus. When he bought a ticket to Seoul, Lena curiously asked if that bus went there. They ended up sitting beside each other. Annoyed, Lena demanded to know why he kept following her. Jen calmly replied that he had not planned it that way. When her stop arrived, she insisted that he get off with her. She then nervously led him toward a military base area. Gathering her courage, she confessed that she had come there to express her feelings for someone. Back in the present, Jen's uncle informed him that he had been promoted and should soon report to headquarters. Jen responded that he was unsure about accepting the position. That evening, Lena noticed Jen walking ahead of her. She wanted to call out to him but hesitated, remembering their awkward interactions earlier. She saw him enter a shop and decided to follow. Before stepping inside, she checked her reflection in the mirror and noticed him looking at her through it. Feeling unexpectedly confident, she approached him and suggested they have fried chicken together since they lived and worked in the same community. Inside the restaurant, they were joined by Yiji, who jokingly remarked that since Jen was the nephew of Lena's acquaintance, their meeting must have been fate. Lena laughed and agreed playfully. After a while, she excused herself to the restroom. As she left, Jen watched her silently. Yiji then asked him directly whether he liked Lena. He did not respond verbally, but his small smile was enough to answer. She pressed further, asking if his feelings dated back to high school. His expression confirmed it. Later, Lena called Yiji to say she was leaving early, wanting her friend to spend time alone with Jen. Yiji asked whether he planned to return to the United States. He avoided answering. At home, Jen saw a message from his mother asking him to come back. Instead of replying, he lay down on the sofa, deep in thought. Lena, outside her home, felt a quiet sadness. She had wanted to tell Yiji many things but postponed it. Entering her room, she retrieved a box hidden beneath her bed. Inside was a notebook filled with newspaper clippings and articles about Juno, evidence of her past admiration. Meanwhile, Jen prepared to leave. With his luggage beside him and his uncle's assistance, he entered a taxi. His uncle asked whether he had informed anyone about his departure. Jen replied that he had met the necessary person and said goodbye. The taxi drove toward the airport. Yiji found herself conflicted. She cared about Jen, yet it was obvious his heart belonged to Lena. Sharing her feelings with Sun helped her realize she should not allow jealousy to ruin her friendship. In the taxi, Jen reflected on the past. He remembered going with Lena to search for someone at a military base. After persistent questioning, they learned the person had been relocated and would be unreachable for months. As they rushed to catch a bus, Lena stumbled and fell. Though he helped her up, they missed the bus. The memory faded as Jen received a sudden phone call from Yiji. She urgently informed him that Lena had been in an accident and was at the hospital. Without hesitation, he instructed the driver to hurry. At the hospital, he found Lena unconscious with injuries to her head and leg. While waiting anxiously, the narrative shifted to Lena's childhood. She had once overheard her stepfather suggesting she be sent away because her mother was expecting another child. Though she pretended not to hear, she had forced herself to smile through the pain. Back in the hospital room, Lena slowly opened her eyes to see Jen sitting beside her, holding her hand. He explained that she had been brought there after the accident. She told him he did not need to stay, not wanting to trouble him. Instead of leaving, he gently placed her hand against his chest so she could feel his steady heartbeat, silently assuring her that he was there and not going anywhere. Confused by his sudden warmth after his earlier cold behavior, Lena wondered what had changed. Perhaps he regretted how he had treated her. Yet she reminded herself not to overthink things, especially because she was Yiji's closest friend. As a doctor entered to examine her and prepare her for further tests, Lena's thoughts swirled. The situation between them felt complicated, layered with years of misunderstandings, hidden feelings, and missed opportunities. Jen remained by her side, watching over her quietly, his emotions finally becoming impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, Yi finished teaching her class and immediately packed her things, determined to visit Lena at the hospital. Before leaving, she went to her father to ask for permission. Seeing her worried expression, he agreed without hesitation. Just then, Sun arrived and Ye's father suggested that he accompany her so she wouldn't go alone. Sun nodded, happy to help. When they reached the hospital parking area, Ye nearly stumbled because of her high heels. She lost her balance for a brief second, but Sun reacted quickly and caught her before she could fall. Embarrassed yet grateful, she thanked him softly. He walked back to the car and returned with a more comfortable pair of shoes, handing them to her with a gentle smile. He told her she would feel better wearing those instead. Ye looked at him warmly, clearly touched by his thoughtfulness. Around the same time, Jen returned from Lena's CT scan appointment, supporting her carefully as they walked. Lena tried to downplay his efforts. She told him he didn't need to take care of her out of guilt for how he had acted earlier. She explained that she had already forgiven him and appreciated that he had come to check on her. After hearing her words, Jen quietly stepped away, leaving her to rest. Lena now had to wear a neck brace, and her leg was secured in a cast due to a fracture. Moving required crutches and every step looked exhausting. Inside the elevator, she asked Jen about Ye. He started to explain, but the space suddenly filled with other patients and visitors. The crowd forced them to stand very close to each other. The awkward proximity made Lena uncomfortable. Once they stepped out, she pulled him aside and warned him not to behave in a way that might seem flirtatious. She said that perhaps such behavior was normal where he lived abroad, but she was more traditional and easily embarrassed. Before he could defend himself, she noticed Ye approaching and hurried toward her friend, tears forming in her eyes. She complained playfully about Ye arriving late. Outside the hospital, Jen and Uncle Wok stood near the car. Ye noticed Sun nearby and suddenly had an idea. She called Sun over and announced that she was dating him, adding that Jen had simply been her first love from long ago. Sun played along, admitting that he had liked Ye for years and had even gone on a blind date to hide his feelings. He apologized to Lena for any misunderstandings. Ye explained that she had wanted to tell Lena the truth earlier but hadn't had the chance because Lena had left so suddenly the day before. That was why she had asked Jen to clarify things instead. Lena suggested they continue talking on the way home. He cleverly insisted that it would be inconvenient for Lena to squeeze into their car because of her injured leg. She encouraged Lena to ride with Jen instead, reminding her not to climb stairs alone and to rest properly. She even persuaded Uncle Wok to join them in their vehicle, despite his initial refusal. Eventually he agreed, realizing everyone was subtly trying to give Jen and Lena private time together. From a short distance away, Jen observed the situation with a faint smile, recognizing their friends' not-so-subtle matchmaking attempts. Lena, however, felt completely confused by everyone's strange behavior. With little choice, she got into Jen's car. To avoid conversation, she pretended to fall asleep. Unfortunately, her phone rang. It was her boss. She had to answer. Meanwhile, Ye admitted to Uncle Wok that she wasn't actually dating Sun. Sun had secretly liked her for a long time but had lacked the courage to confess openly. Their little performance had only been meant to clear up misunderstandings. During her phone call, Lena explained to her boss that she had missed an important meeting because of her accident. Her colleagues had tried to contact her but failed, causing chaos at the office. After hanging up, Jen teased her, asking whether she still skipped responsibilities the way she used to skip classes in school. As they drove, Jen suddenly stopped to adjust something near his shoe. In doing so, he slipped and fell into a muddy water-filled ditch by the roadside. Lena noticed he had disappeared from sight and panicked, calling his name loudly. From inside the muddy hole, Jen sheepishly asked for help. At first, Lena burst into laughter at the absurdity of the situation, but when she realized he might actually be stuck, she grew concerned. His phone, soaked in water, was ruined. As he checked his pockets, he found an old photograph he had once taken from the school notice board, a photo that included Lena among other students. He stared at it for a moment and silently resolved not to create any more chaos involving her. Carefully, he placed it back in his pocket. Suddenly, croaking frogs nearby startled them. Jen warned Lena not to wander off alone in the dark. In her haste to help him, she lost her footing and fell into the muddy hole as well. He scolded her for acting impulsively, calling her foolish, though he quickly clarified that he didn't mean it harshly. He couldn't believe she had jumped in without even securing her phone. She tried to climb out using a patch of grass at the edge, but the grass tore away, causing Jen to sink deeper into the mud. When he stopped responding for a brief moment, Lena panicked and plunged in further to check on him. A frog brushed near her ear, making her shriek. Jen laughed despite the mess, teasing her fear. Despite the uncomfortable situation, they both ended up laughing together. Later, recalling the memory, Lena couldn't help smiling. Jen commented that she seemed to remember it clearly now. She admitted she often forgot unpleasant memories quickly. He responded that while those moments had been messy and embarrassing, they were still shared memories, something meaningful between them. Eventually, they arrived at her home. Jin helped her out of the car, though she insisted she could manage on her own. As she approached the stairs, she nearly slipped again, but he caught her swiftly. He assured her that as long as he was around, he wouldn't let her fall. Half-jokingly, he asked if she wanted him to carry her upstairs. When she stumbled again, he firmly supported her from behind. She smiled faintly at his steadiness. He carried her carefully inside and laid her gently on the bed, ensuring she was comfortable. He reminded her to take her prescribed medication. She tried to delay it until the next day, but he insisted firmly until she complied. As she adjusted herself, a small card slipped out of her bag and fell unnoticed onto the floor. Elsewhere, Yi, Sun, and Uncle Wok were having a meal together at Sangpil's restaurant. Yi curiously asked about a menu combination, and Sun inquired about Uncle Wok's connection to Lena. Yi explained that he was both Lena's landlord and linked to Jen's family, which surprised Sun. Back at home, Lena drifted into sleep. In her dream, she imagined Jen standing beside her bed. When she asked what he wanted for dinner, he replied teasingly, "You," and leaned closer as though about to kiss her. Just as she prepared herself nervously, she jolted awake, realizing it was only a dream. Flustered by her own imagination, she muttered to herself to stop thinking such strange thoughts. Determined to move upstairs despite her injury, she struggled with her luggage, crawling slowly. Suddenly, Jen appeared again and firmly insisted on carrying her instead. He refused to let her strain herself and brought her food and medicine. Grateful, she thanked him sincerely, admitting that perhaps her past perception of him had been mistaken. He told her to rest and call him the next morning if she needed anything. As he left, she wondered if he was upset with her, but then remembered her earlier dream and laughed softly to herself. Meanwhile, alone in his own room, Jen reflected deeply. He wondered how many times she might push him away before he finally found the courage to confess the feelings he had been holding onto for so many years. At that very moment, Jen's phone rang. It was a close friend calling from the United States, surprised that he had not yet boarded his scheduled flight. His friend reminded him that, according to the original plan, he should already be on the plane heading back. Jen did not answer immediately. His gaze drifted downward and landed on a small card lying on the floor, the one that had slipped out of Lena's bag earlier. He bent down and picked it up. Printed clearly on it was the name of the animation production company where Lena worked as a producer. A faint, knowing smile curved across his lips. He understood that she was deeply involved in her work and that this project meant more to her than she openly admitted. Holding the card between his fingers, he told his friend calmly that he would not be leaving just yet. As he continued looking at the card, his thoughts carried him back to a memory from years ago. In that memory, Lena had been teasing him, suggesting that they play a round of truth and dare to stay awake. She had declared that anyone whose confession was dull or who looked like they might fall asleep would receive a playful flick on the forehead as punishment. Without hesitation, Lena went first, with dramatic flair. She announced that her Juno was incredibly handsome. Jen lightly tapped her head and joked that her confession was so uninteresting it nearly put him to sleep. She laughed in protest. When it was his turn, Jin admitted that he had once answered a math question incorrectly on an important exam. Lena burst into laughter at how ordinary his secret sounded. Not to be outdone, she confessed that she had once ranked last in her English class because she had randomly chosen every second answer on a multiple-choice test, and none of them were correct. She had even gone to the teacher afterward to question it, only to discover her mistake. Jen stared at her, stunned by how honestly she exposed her own embarrassment. Encouraged by her openness, he told her to flick his forehead as punishment, claiming he had no more exciting secrets. Then after a pause, he revealed something more meaningful, his quiet dream of becoming an animation director one day. He admitted that no one else knew about this ambition and that it would not be easy to achieve. Lena looked at him seriously and declared that she would help him fulfill that dream. He smiled skeptically, warning her that dreams like that required enormous effort. She answered confidently that nothing worthwhile was ever easy. Then, in her playful way, she promised that once she became an animation director, she would give him 5% of her salary as repayment for believing in her. The memory faded. The following morning, Lena woke up and began chatting in a group conversation with Yiji and Sangpil. They asked how she had slept. She admitted that she had eaten only porridge the day before and was now starving. Yiji mischievously added Jen to the chat without warning. While preparing breakfast, he read Lena's message about being hungry and told her she could come downstairs to eat. She replied stubbornly that she would stay upstairs. He responded that he would bring the food up instead. The moment she read that, she hurried downstairs, unable to resist. Jen set the table and served her a carefully prepared meal. She tasted it and praised him, nodding that it was perfectly seasoned and not overly salty. He remembered having asked Sangpil about Lena's food preferences beforehand. After the meal, he placed a slice of tiramisu in front of her, mentioning casually that he had heard it was her favorite. She accepted it eagerly, recalling that Yiji had once said the same. As they ate, Lena opened up about her previous heartbreak. She described how her former boyfriend had left without warning, how devastated she had been and how long it had taken her to recover. Jen listened quietly, observing every change in her expression. She asked him how things were progressing between him and Yiji, clearly hoping her friend would be happy. Jen replied that at present Lena only regarded him as a school friend, so that was the role he would maintain for now. After finishing dessert, Lena prepared to go upstairs to retrieve her laptop. Jen stopped her playfully and reminded her about the 5% salary promise from years ago. She laughed and claimed that she had made that promise when her mind was not functioning properly, perhaps around the time they fell into the muddy ditch. She insisted she would manage on her own and began climbing the stairs carefully. At that moment, Juno appeared. Having heard that Lena was on leave due to her injury, he approached with a faintly amused expression. He remarked that although her meeting had reportedly been delayed because of her accident, she seemed to be spending her time with Jen instead. He questioned her professionalism. Jen looked ready to respond, but Lena stopped him and stepped forward to address Juno herself. She apologized if her absence had caused trouble and told him that if necessary, he could remove her from the project. Juno spoke softly, insisting that no matter what happened, she would always love him. Lena answered calmly that she had changed and was no longer the same person she once was. When he tried to hold her hand, she pulled it away firmly and warned him not to cross that boundary again. She reminded him that he understood perfectly why she was drawing that line. With difficulty, she continued climbing the stairs despite the sharp pain in her injured leg. Juno watched her for a moment before leaving quietly. Once she reached the top, she could no longer bear the pain and sat down outside her door. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she cried silently. Jen soon arrived and sat beside her. Gently he asked why she insisted on appearing so strong when she was clearly hurting. She admitted that her leg ached terribly and that she felt embarrassed for him to witness the collapse of her relationship. He smiled softly and confessed that strangely, watching her failed romance made him nostalgic. It reminded him of all the messy, imperfect moments they had shared, like the time they fell into the muddy puddle together. Those memories, no matter how awkward, connected them. She shook her head and insisted she wanted to forget the past entirely. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder and told her to recover not only from her physical injury but also from her broken heart. Leaning closer, he pressed a tender, comforting kiss to her. Later, alone with his thoughts, Jen reflected that memories were never unstable. They stayed with at least one person forever. Another flashback surfaced, the puddle incident again. In that memory, he had been so exhausted that he rested his head briefly on Lena's shoulder. Her heartbeat had quickened, and she had wondered nervously whether that sudden closeness meant she felt something deeper. The story shifted further back to their high school days. Jen had been waiting at a bus stop when he spotted Lena sitting alone across the street. His face brightened instantly, and he even had a small gift prepared for her. Suddenly, his mother called, announcing that the family would be moving to the United States. She informed him firmly that he would continue his education there and that her decision would not change. He looked toward Lena with sadness. At the same time, she noticed him and excitedly held up a piece of paper, calling out that she was coming over. But before she could reach him, his bus arrived. He boarded, leaving her standing there with mixed disappointment and hope. Back in the present, Jen admitted that he felt relieved her previous relationship had ended. He encouraged her again to heal both physically and emotionally. He leaned in and kissed her gently once more. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed by conflicting feelings of comfort and embarrassment. Suddenly her phone rang, breaking the moment. She pushed him away lightly and warned him not to tease her like that. He laughed softly and replied that he was not joking. He confessed plainly that he had liked her since high school and still did. Shocked, Lena insisted they had never been anything more than friends and never would be. He pointed out quietly that friends did not usually share kisses like that. Then he stepped back, giving her space, and asked her to think about it calmly. Later, Lena visited Sangpil at his restaurant. He was in the kitchen peeling onions. She insisted on helping despite his protests. Soon they were both peeling onions and laughing together. She ended up preparing so many that Sangpil jokingly acted as though he might faint from exhaustion. Curious, she asked him why he had never dated anyone seriously. He replied that back in high school, he had asked her many times to introduce him to someone, but she never had. Now, he said, he would focus entirely on stabilizing his restaurant before considering romance. And somewhere between tears, laughter, heartbreak, and lingering memories, the complicated threads tying them all together continued to tighten. Meanwhile, Jen stands at the sink, slowly scrubbing plates and bowls, yet his mind is nowhere near the kitchen. His thoughts drift back to the kiss he shared with Lena. The memory replays again and again, and he can't stop smiling. His uncle walks in unexpectedly and immediately notices the dreamy expression on Jen's face. With a hint of irritation, he asks why Jen seems so happy. Then he brings up something serious. He tried to arrange a temporary transfer for Jen to headquarters, but the request was rejected. Instead, the company insists that Jen travel to the United States for a reassignment. When Jen asks how long he would have to stay, his uncle replies that it would likely be a month or two. Jen shakes his head firmly and says he won't go back. Shocked, his uncle demands to know whether Jen is really willing to give up his career over his first love. He questions whether Lena is worth such a sacrifice and reminds him that there is no guarantee they will even end up together. Not long after, Yiji approaches Jen and asks if he is free the next day. She wants to treat him to lunch as a thank you for helping her earlier. Jen hesitates at first, but they both realize they have open schedules. With a playful smile, she tells him that he belongs to her the next day and walks away. At the restaurant, Sangpil informs Lena that Jen has arrived. The moment she hears his name, she reacts strongly and scolds Sangpil for calling him. Feeling overwhelmed, she abruptly leaves, abandoning her unfinished meal. When Jen enters, Sangpil explains that merely mentioning his name frightened her off. Jen cannot hide the disappointment that flickers across his face. Elsewhere, Lena stands alone at a bus stop. She finds herself remembering the past, thinking about a time when Jen stood across from her at another bus stop. She catches herself and wonders why she is dwelling on these memories now. While riding the bus, she receives a message from Juno threatening to remove her from a project if she does not respond. She decides to stay silent, trying to remain calm. As she gazes out at the road, she recalls running across the street once to meet Jen, only to find that he had already left by the time she arrived. The following day at school, Lena learns that Jen has departed for the United States. The news hits her hard. She drops the paper detailing her career plans, her sadness overwhelming her. Soon after, Sangpil appears outside her house, calling out loudly and insisting she join him on a trip. She hesitates, pointing out how exhausted she looks and explaining that she has not even packed. Sangpil refuses to accept her excuses. He reminds her that she has spent the last decade stuck at home, constantly doing chores and rarely allowing herself any joy. He urges her to finally take time for herself. He also mentions that Uncle Wok will be joining them and that his restaurant is closed for the day. Lena tries to argue that things between her and Jen are awkward, but Sangpil ignores her protests. Eventually, Lena and Jen find themselves sitting together in the backseat of a car. Uncle Wok reclines his seat so far back that Jen is forced to sit very close to Lena. They stop at a small shop to buy supplies. Lena offers to help carry items, but Sangpil refuses. Jen steps in and assists her, creating a brief private moment outside. Lena quietly suggests that they act as if nothing happened before, admitting that the situation feels uncomfortable. Jen smiles warmly and says he actually enjoys it, teasing that he exists only in her thoughts right now. Lena blushes and excuses herself to the restroom. As she splashes water on her face, she tells herself to ignore him and simply enjoy the trip. When she returns, she volunteers to drive. Sangpil agrees, claiming he is tired, but Jen insists on taking the wheel instead. Lena feels a mixture of happiness and slight disappointment. As she moves toward the backseat, Uncle Wok occupies it, leaving her no choice but to sit in the front beside Jen. Sangpil and Uncle Wok soon fall asleep. Lena leans forward eagerly, watching the ocean view grow closer. Her excitement builds with every passing moment. She nudges the others awake, announcing that they have almost arrived. They reach a cozy seaside guest house and begin unpacking. Sangpil and Uncle Wok head out to fish while Jen organizes boxes. Lena approaches to help, but Jen gently takes her hand and suggests they work together. Flustered, she pulls away and retreats to her room, calling Yiji and urging her to come quickly. She complains that she hates Jen, but Yiji teasingly suggests that her feelings are far more complicated than she admits. Later, Miss Beck calls Lena and informs her that she must work at Juno's studio for a month. When Lena asks for an explanation, Miss Beck states firmly that she needs the script quickly and that Lena is the only capable professional producer available. The call ends abruptly. By evening, they have gathered numerous shells and sea creatures. At one point, they discover an octopus. As both Lena and Jen attempt to pull it free, Lena loses her balance and falls on top of him. They freeze, staring into each other's eyes. Panicking slightly, Lena covers his mouth with her hand, afraid he might kiss her again. When she glances upward, she realizes all the shells they collected have slipped back into the water. Jen groans in frustration, lamenting their wasted effort. While he tries to retrieve them, Lena runs off, laughing in embarrassment. When they return to the house, Yiji and Sun have arrived. Yiji is energetically crushing garlic for dinner. Lena pulls her aside to talk. Yiji confesses that Sun is not truly her boyfriend. She only pretended he was to encourage Lena to consider Jen more seriously. Lena feels relieved and smiles. Everyone gathers around the table for dinner. Photos are taken, laughter fills the room, and they enjoy the meal together. Later, memories surface from Lena's childhood. She recalls watching cartoons happily until her mother insisted she stay home. When Lena asked to go somewhere, her mother refused and left anyway. Lena ran after her but was too late. Another memory follows, Juno leaving for the airport while Lena begged him to stay. He walked away, determined to return only after becoming successful. Lena wakes from these memories and looks around the quiet house. Meanwhile, the others are already on the road somewhere. Uncle Wok receives a call from Jen's mother. Jen prepares breakfast for Lena and explains that the others left earlier, leaving them time alone. As they sit together, Lena remembers her dream and admits she does not want him to leave for the United States. Jen immediately reassures her that he is not going anywhere. She leans in and kisses him gently, and he responds with equal passion. Afterward, Lena steps back slightly and Jen playfully tells her she cannot retreat now. She laughs and explains she simply needs time to adjust to this new closeness. They have never spent time together like this before. Later, while eating at a restaurant, they keep stealing glances at each other. Lena jokes that she will not be able to digest her food if she continues staring at him. Jen tells her she should look as much as she wants. He needs to get used to it too. His phone rings repeatedly with calls from his uncle, but he ignores them. On their way home, Jen admits he feels hungry, though Lena does not. She offers to recommend a good restaurant, but before she can step away, he catches her hand and suggests that his hunger might simply be an excuse to spend more time with her. Their faces draw close. From behind, Uncle Wok watches and wonders if they're about to kiss. Instead, Jen gently leads Lena inside. Uncle Wok jokes that Jen's wish has finally come true and asks if he truly plans to resign. Jen confirms that he does. While showering, Jen listens as his uncle mentions that his mother called to discuss his decision. Jen admits he cares for Lena too deeply to leave. His uncle expresses surprise, reminding him how focused he once was on work and responsibilities. He points out that Jen's mother managed everything after his father's passing and might hope he experiences the United States at least once. Jen laughs and splashes water at him, chasing him away. Later that night, Jen calls Lena and asks if she is asleep. She says she is not and tells him not to come upstairs because she is resting. He climbs the stairs anyway but pauses when she insists. Smiling softly, he asks whether he has told her that he likes her. She blushes and answers yes. He confesses his feelings again. Overwhelmed and shy, Lena quietly says goodbye and ends the call, her heart racing with emotions she can no longer deny. Early the next morning, Uncle Wok quietly opened the door and peeked inside, only to find Jen already seated at his desk, focused on work. Surprised, he stepped closer and asked whether Jen had stayed awake the entire night. Jen calmly shook his head and replied that he simply hadn't been able to sleep. Uncle Wok studied his expression and remarked that a person usually loses sleep either because of heavy stress or overwhelming excitement. Jen did not argue, instead, a faint smile appeared on his face. Uncle Wok sighed and commented that he had never seen him so transparently in love before. He then called out to Lena, inviting her to join them for breakfast. However, she politely declined, explaining that she was out shopping with Yiji. Yiji had already declared that the entire day would belong to the two of them, and Lena gladly agreed. The girls decided to devote their time to enjoying themselves without thinking about anything else. Later that evening, Lena and Yiji were at Sangpil's restaurant, which had temporarily turned into a lively gathering place. They laughed endlessly while getting their hair styled and curled, teasing each other and enjoying rare carefree moments. Outside, Jen waited patiently. Eventually, Lena appeared with Uncle Wok in tow, though he was clearly intoxicated. She explained that she had found him outside and could not leave him there alone. Without hesitation, Jen lifted his uncle onto his back and carried him inside, handling the situation with a mixture of responsibility and quiet amusement. The following day was special for both Lena and Jen. It would be their first official date. Each of them stood in front of their mirrors, carefully selecting outfits, changing clothes more than once, wanting to make a perfect impression. When Lena finally stepped outside, Jen arrived to pick her up. Nearby, they noticed Yiji sitting alone on a bench. She sent a message asking about Sun's condition, checking whether he had taken his medication. Lena gently suggested that Yiji visit him and perhaps bring him something to eat along the way. Yiji followed that advice and went to Sun's house, telling his mother that she had come to see him because he wasn't feeling well. His mother welcomed her warmly and began asking personal questions about her background and family. Before the conversation could go further, Sun suddenly declared that there was nothing romantic between them. His mother's expression fell, and Yiji felt embarrassed and hurt by his bluntness. Meanwhile, Jen was driving Lena through the city. Out of curiosity, he asked what she liked about him. Lena hesitated and admitted she wasn't sure. Her vague answer annoyed him slightly. Soon, they arrived at an exhibition. Lena walked ahead confidently while Jen followed just a few steps behind. In her thoughts, she reflected that perhaps he didn't know the answer either. Jen eventually closed the distance between them and admitted that he didn't fully understand what he liked about her because she had never allowed him to get close enough before. Lena teased him by pointing out that he hadn't exactly tried very hard either. Their playful exchange ended in shared smiles, the tension replaced by warmth. Just as they seemed ready to share a tender moment, Jen's phone rang. It was Uncle Wok. He ended the call quickly, but moments later Uncle Wok dialed Lena's phone instead. She answered and was told there was an urgent matter. Reluctantly, Jen had to cut the date short and drop Lena off. Afterward, Jen spoke with his mother about resigning from his job. She refused to accept his decision immediately. She reminded him that he had always followed her guidance and questioned why he was changing now. Although she told him he must make his own choices, she was clearly exhausted and postponed the discussion until the following day. She retreated to her room, leaving Jen alone with his thoughts. The next morning, Lena finalized a script for Juno's book project and left home. She intended to meet Jen first, but he wasn't there. Later, he called her to confirm that she still remembered their plan to meet that evening. She reassured him they would see each other after work. At the same time, Jen's mother was preparing to go to the office with him. During the drive, Jen casually pointed out that not everything had changed in his hometown. At the office, Uncle Wok attempted to calm the employees, though he himself was visibly nervous because Jen's mother was visiting. When she arrived, everyone greeted her respectfully. Later, Jen and Uncle Wok met privately to discuss business matters. She mentioned that she would be staying nearby for several days. Jen quickly clarified that she did not need to do that for his sake because he would not reverse his decision. She responded firmly that she would not return alone either. Memories surfaced of a past day at a bus stop when Jen's mother had noticed him watching Lena from afar. As Lena crossed the street toward him, he had already walked away. The missed timing felt symbolic of their history. In the present, Juno confronted Lena and asked whether she could forgive him. Lena remained silent at first, then firmly explained how she had waited years trying to understand why he left without explanation. She had blamed herself repeatedly, just as she once did when her mother abandoned her. Now she realized that regardless of his reasons, he had still chosen to leave. She declared that she was now in a relationship with someone else and had no intention of breaking up. With that, she walked away and later informed her boss that she could no longer continue with the project. Across the street, Jen called out to her. Initially, she told him to stay where he was, but she couldn't resist. She ran toward him and wrapped her arms tightly around him, laughing as she accused him of being late. He blamed traffic, which only made her giggle more. She boldly announced that he would spend the entire day with her. They spent hours playing games, sharing jokes, and enjoying each other's company without restraint. As they headed home, Lena reflected that although they had spent a lot of money at the arcade, it had been worth every coin. Jen agreed, saying that all his stress had disappeared. Then he revealed that he had resigned from his job. Shocked, Lena asked whether he had done so because she had asked him not to go abroad. He gently shook his head and insisted it was his own decision. She accepted his answer with a trusting smile. Suddenly, a taxi pulled up and Jen's mother stepped out. Lena instinctively released his hand. However, Jen held her hand again and introduced her confidently as his girlfriend. Lena stepped aside politely, not wanting to create tension. At home, Jen's mother noticed numerous changes in the house. She called Uncle Wok and demanded explanations. Jen admitted that Lena had influenced his decision to stay, but his mother claimed she knew him better than anyone and asked whether this relationship was the true reason. He denied that it was the only reason. She then declared that they would no longer stay in hotels but would remain at the house from then on. That night, Lena quietly returned home only to find Jen waiting for her on the stairs. He pulled her into a close embrace. She whispered nervously that his mother was there. He nodded, admitting she had arrived unexpectedly and asking whether Lena felt frightened. She confessed that she worried his mother might not like her. Jen reassured her gently, explaining that his mother could seem strict but did not mean harm. He expressed happiness that they could now spend more time together, and they embraced again. The following day, Jen went to Sangpil's restaurant. Because of his charm and helpful nature, he quickly became involved in assisting with the restaurant's daily operations. Soon, he received a message from Lena saying she planned to visit the restaurant for a good meal. He smiled brightly at the thought. Elsewhere, Uncle Wok confronted Jen's mother, questioning why she was directing her frustration toward others when she could not control her son's choices. She dismissed his words and continued to blame him. Meanwhile, Lena called Jen to say she was changing her outfit and asked him to prepare the food. After ending the call, she headed downstairs and unexpectedly encountered Jen's mother. She was invited inside for a serious conversation. Jen's mother explained that her son was destined to take over her company one day and that she had taken him abroad for that reason. Lena responded firmly that such decisions should belong to Jen, not be dictated by someone else. His mother insisted that his choices were tied to her own. Lena then spoke honestly about how Jen had once insisted she stay by his side after her accident, even when she resisted. She admitted he had confessed happiness about her previous breakup and kissed her despite her confusion. Jen's mother warned her that her son had dated many girls before and that he did not always stay committed for long. She advised Lena not to hurt herself and to end things quickly if it felt wrong. Lena rolled her eyes slightly but remained composed. As she prepared to leave, she added one final thought. She told Jen's mother that the reason Jen calculates everything so carefully is because of the pressure placed on him. She pointed out that he had resigned not out of impulse but because he understood her value and the importance of choosing his own happiness. At Sangpil's restaurant, Jen and Yiji sat at a table waiting, but Lena still hadn't shown up. The food had already been prepared and the atmosphere that should have felt cheerful instead grew tense with every passing minute. Jen checked his phone repeatedly. When there was still no sign of her, impatience got the better of him. He stepped outside to call her, but she didn't answer. Concern slowly replaced irritation, and he decided to go to her place himself. When he arrived, he found Lena lying on a bench outside, staring blankly ahead as if lost in heavy thoughts. As he approached, he noticed a letter lying nearby. It was from Juno. He picked it up instinctively, his expression tightening as he recognized the name. Without saying much, he went upstairs to confront her, holding the letter in his hand. Inside, Lena looked distant. She began mentioning the names of several girls, pointing out that one of them had once dated him. Jen was taken aback by the sudden shift in tone. Before he could explain anything, she questioned him sharply. Why hadn't he told her about his past? Had he simply flirted with her the same way? Her voice trembled, not just with anger but with insecurity. Jen tried to calm her. He insisted he wasn't that kind of person, but Lena wasn't convinced. She reminded him that his mother had traveled all the way to take him back abroad. How could she trust that he wouldn't leave without warning? She accused him of nearly disappearing once already. Jen repeated firmly that he had promised he wasn't going anywhere. Then he turned the conversation toward Juno. Why had Lena told him she was working on a project with him? She defended herself, explaining that she had already cleared up everything with Juno and that there was nothing left between them. What hurt her most was that he didn't seem to trust her. Jen admitted he had seen her crying because of Juno before. How could he ignore that? The argument ended without resolution. Lena walked silently into her room, shutting the door behind her. The next morning, Jen woke up on the sofa. Empty bottles nearby suggested he had tried to drown his frustration in alcohol. His head ached. He stumbled to the kitchen for water, then collapsed back down, exhausted. Later, Sangpil came over with groceries and decided to cook something for him. While preparing food, Jen told him everything that had happened. Sangpil listened carefully and offered simple advice. When Lena brings up her past, don't react emotionally. Pretend it doesn't bother you. Don't make it heavier than it already is. Jen shook his head. He insisted that Lena was the only person who mattered to him. No one else existed in his heart the way she did. Sangpil then pulled out old high school photos. He showed Jen pictures of Lena from years ago and shared stories he had never heard before. There had been a time when she fainted but refused to go to the hospital. She often dreamed that everyone she loved would leave her. She had developed a habit of saying goodbye early, even when it wasn't necessary, because she was afraid people would disappear without warning. She once told Sangpil that she only wanted honesty. If someone was going to leave, she wanted to know so she wouldn't waste time waiting. Jen fell silent. He remembered how she sometimes asked him to tell her clearly if he ever planned to go somewhere. He began to understand that her fear wasn't about him flirting with other girls, it was about abandonment. Sangpil concluded gently that everyone carries scars from the past. Lena's fear of being left behind was hers. Elsewhere at school, Sun finally gathered his courage and confessed his love to Yiji. Her face lit up instantly. She whispered that she loved him too, and they shared a shy but genuine kiss, finally resolving their misunderstandings. Jen later sat alone outside when his mother approached him. She asked him to come inside, but he hesitated. Instead, he asked her whether she had ever regretted leaving this place behind. She said no, yet he continued speaking. He admitted that whenever he felt overwhelmed abroad, he thought about this town, the memories here, Lena, even her. Those thoughts had kept him steady during difficult times. It was the first time he openly expressed how much the place meant to him. Meanwhile, Lena noticed the hour and hurried home, hopping to see Jen. As she crossed the street, she nearly collided with a speeding scooter. At that exact moment, Jen appeared and pulled her out of harm's way. Breathless, he told her he had been on his way to see her anyway. Tears welled in her eyes. The tension between them melted instantly. They both apologized. Lena admitted that her anger had come from anxiety, not distrust. She had unfairly placed the weight of her past fears onto him. Jen responded not with more words but with a soft kiss and a reassuring smile. He walked her home. At her doorstep she insisted he go first but he refused, saying she should enter before him. As she opened the door she casually asked if he wanted ramen. He agreed without hesitation and followed her inside. While she prepared the bedding, she warned him that it might get cold. He misunderstood for a moment, thinking she was inviting him to sit closer, but she simply handed him a blanket. They laughed lightly. Then they debated which ramen flavor to cook. Sitting close together, their shoulders almost touching, the air felt charged. Lena suddenly accused him of thinking about something other than food. He teased her back, telling her not to give him the wrong ideas if she didn't mean to. As he boiled water and prepared everything carefully, she stepped aside shyly and sat on a cardboard box nearby. He suggested she sit comfortably on a chair, but she refused. She praised him for being capable at everything and asked once more if he truly wasn't leaving. He answered honestly that all he wanted was a simple life with her. She said softly that it wouldn't be easy. At one point she nearly lost her balance. He caught her, but in the process they both fell. She landed on top of him. Laughing, he accused her playfully of doing it on purpose. She denied it, flustered. He leaned closer and said that if she hadn't meant it, then she had to take responsibility. He moved in for a kiss, but she placed her hand over his mouth and insisted they eat first. The following morning, they came downstairs together and were startled to see his mother standing there. She looked at them but said nothing, walking past without comment. Lena followed her, apologizing for the previous day's tension. Soon after, Jen met with an investor to discuss new opportunities. The man questioned whether his mother approved of this direction. Jen responded confidently that she knew his capabilities and that he had already proven himself. Later, Lena and Jen lay side by side in bed. He kept watching her instead of reading. She told him to focus on his book, but he admitted he preferred looking at her face. Blushing deeply, she hid behind the book. She reached out to touch his cheek and he held her hand. Eventually, they fell asleep peacefully. The next morning, snowfall covered the world outside Lena's window. She thought Jen had come to see her, but instead it was his mother. She invited her in, apologizing for not having much food in the refrigerator. His mother handed her an envelope and admitted she didn't have much time. At the same time, Jen noticed a suitcase at home. His mother explained she was heading to headquarters but suggested they share lunch before she left. During that meal, she revealed the real reason she had moved abroad years ago. It hadn't simply been about opportunity. Jen's father had betrayed her, and though he later apologized, she could never forgive him. That betrayal shaped her decisions and hardened her heart. Meanwhile, Lena wandered through places she had once visited with Jen, holding the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note from his mother. It offered Lena the chance to come abroad and stay with them. The message was clear: her son was willing to abandon everything for her. Could she do the same for him? Jen helped load his mother's groceries into a taxi. Before leaving, she told him she would wait for both of them overseas. He rushed to Lena's house, but she wasn't there. At her own home, she lay on the floor, switching the lights on and off, thinking deeply. Elsewhere, Sun confidently told Yiji's father that he intended to marry her someday, easing any lingering doubts. Later, Lena called Jen and asked him to meet her at school. They walked hand in hand. Gently, he asked if she would come abroad with him. He admitted he couldn't bear being separated from her. Tears filled her eyes. She loved him deeply, but she couldn't leave everything behind. Jen squeezed her hands and said he understood. Her family, her friends, her world were here. He promised he would go, pursue his dreams, and return. He would build a future and come back to her. They held each other tightly. In the days before his departure, they cherished every moment. She once fell asleep on his shoulder, wishing time would slow down. When the day came, Sangpil and Uncle Wok accompanied him to a taxi. They asked about Lena. He explained she was busy but had promised to call later. At the airport, he sat alone, feeling the weight of goodbye pressing heavily on his chest. Then unexpectedly, Lena appeared, luggage in hand. Dressed warmly, he stared at her in disbelief and joy. She smiled brightly and said she couldn't let him go alone. She was joining him on this long journey. Relief and happiness flooded his face as they embraced tightly, ready to face whatever awaited them together.